and then you will be able to get a job like DFR. But the whole point from what I'm explaining this new job is it's basically because both of them are very close to each other. Okay, guys? So we talked about what is evidence, what is digital forensics and incident response in a very quick way. So I will go back to tell you where exactly I can find, this is my question to everyone here, where I will find digital forensics in this capabilities or in this function. Okay, like if I wanted to say, you know, I will apply digital forensic. Is it gonna fall into identifying function? Is it gonna fall in the protection function? Is gonna fall in detection function? Is gonna fall in responding function, or is gonna fall in recovery function? Where do you think?
I think in response.
Okay, incident response. Where is the incident response as well? Is it gonna be protection, detection, responding, recovery? Where it's
Responding.
gonna responding? So very good question. Who said Nasiba, right?
Yes, Nusayb.
Yes, Nasiba. So Nasiba is saying basically that's in responding we have our IR, okay, IR, which is incident response. And incident response, guys, will be responding to an incident, and we mentioned that to respond in incidents, you need to have to prepare for incident response. You need to have your communication plan. You need to know what is the team is going to be there to respond for an incident. You need to have enough tools and enough, I would say, like a bag for tools to really react for an incident. And then you start to identify incident by collecting logs, by asking people, by checking logs from different network sources and system sources. And then finally you can tell if there is an incident or no. And once you have an incident, guys, we mentioned also a couple of days ago that the incidents, okay, the response to the incidents, we mentioned it's the big umbrella fall into something called contingency planning. And the contingency planning is based on something called BII, which is basically business impact analysis. And this contingency planning and BII is basically saying if we impacted by a huge intrusion or a huge incident, what we should do. And the contingency planning say in the early beginning of an incident, you need really to do incident response, IR, okay? If the incident is really huge in the impact and really, I would say that has a really big impact on the organization, we need to activate our disaster recovery planning, okay? And the disaster recovery is basically meaning that I will try to restore the service within the primary site. If we fail to restore the systems and to restore the operation in the main sites, we will try to do business continuity. And the business continuity, as you guys remember, is basically about restoring the operation, restoring the activity on alternative sites. And we talked that the alternative sites is going to be 3 types of sites: hot sites, cold sites, and warm sites. So this is basically what you do in this specific area. You implement your contingency planning. How to implement the contingency planning? The main document that you will use for contingency planning, by the way, is BII. And what is BII, guys? Again, business impact analysis. How can we do business impact analysis? And what is the difference between business impact analysis and the risk assessment? Because risk assessment also very close to the business impact analysis. Can someone tell me what is the difference between BII, which is business impact analysis, and risk assessment?
Risk assessment is gonna be before anything we assess the risk, and we see what's false positive or positive false, or these things, and we try to make a plan to not to have the risk, but the other one, the business impact analysis, is after you get hit, you get impact with a disaster or an attack or something.
Okay, so basically what Faisal is saying, that in risk assessment, we start our risk assessment in early beginning, in early beginning when we started our core function here, which is identification area. So in identification, we're basically saying what is the assets we have, okay, what is threats we have, and then what is the vulnerability we have, and then we start to implement risk assessment based on maybe you know, quantitative approach or qualitative approach, and then finally we'll have a risk score, and this risk score is gonna give us priorities of which risk we really need to deal with it in the same organization. While business impact analysis, we do it here in the responding phase. And in the responding phase, we look at the business impact. We look at how to do in business impact. We first of all, we meet with the business. We understand what is their critical function, and we understand what is the impact if we lose one of this critical function. And we understand also what system are supporting this critical function. So let's say we're having a bank, okay? So when in banking, they will say, okay, we have maybe the critical function here is our website, okay, the online website. And the online website will allow user to log in, will allow user to do the day-to-day operation without coming to the bank. So this is the main function. Okay, what system are supporting our main function? Oh, we have a website here, we have an application server here, okay, we have a database server here. So we understand all the components that support their main function, and then according and say, okay, what will happen if we have one of these systems are down, okay? So you started to understand from the business is the impact if you're losing this database, okay? And once you understand the impact is huge, okay? How you can know all of this by interviewing the business or by interviewing the business owners. Once you know all this, you start to say, okay, the business impact analysis, I have a business now. The main function is maybe online trading or online banking. Okay, main systems that support the online system is basically a website and a DMZ, an application server inside, and we have a database server. Maybe we have also the cloud solution to store the data there. So we have also a cloud solution. So you list all the system, and you start to come up with a different scenario. What if we are having a downtime? Okay, what we should do? How is this impact on our business? Is the downtime coming from the internet, from the hardware failure, from an attack to our system? So you started to put the scenario, and finally you said the impact here is going to be great. And then once you understand that there is an impact, and this impact will impact the whole business, then you start to say, okay, you know what? After I understand all the impact, I will start to come up with a contingency planning. Contingency planning, as we mentioned, the definition of it is meaning how to continue our activity during an incident or during a disaster or during even like a major disaster. So right now, guys, if you recall what we have done in the contingency planning, we said that the contingency planning is the biggest umbrella. And under contingency planning, we have the incident response, we have the DR, we have disaster recovery, and we have business continuity. Okay, this is what we covered in the last few days. Okay, is everyone is clear about this, guys? I told you we have not covered the detection part, because the detection part is we're gonna discuss it in a very deep details by end of next week, inshallah. We started to look at detections. How can we implement tools for detection, and what is detection is all about, and how we implement detection within our organization. But I can tell you guys, these three topics becoming a really hot topics right now. Okay, so if you are good in one of these areas, you're gonna be hired like crazy, because right now, I told you, the detection only, okay, there is a title for it, it's called SOC engineer. So the SOC engineer is basically someone is looking at logs and looking at the SIEM solution and looking at different logs coming from firewall and network and systems, and he's trying to detect if there is any anomaly or any abnormal activity within your system. So this is a job itself, okay? If you look at the responding, this is a SOC, okay? This is a SOC layer 2. So SOC layer 2 is someone who is responding to incident. And I told you that sometimes if the company is really looking for someone who do responding to incidents and also able to do a digital forensics, they call this job DF, digital forensics, and IR. So DFIR. So this DFIR is basically two jobs together. Someone will be able to do incident response, so this guy, plus he has a mentality of digital forensics. So while he is doing the incident and while he are trying to protect further damage, while he's trying to also, you know, to eliminate the damage of the attacks and eradicate the main cause, he can be able also to gather artifacts, to gather evidence, so later on he can represent it in the court. So they said, okay, these two application science or application area, they are very close together. So this is a job itself right now. Okay. And I mentioned to you guys, there's another job related to this area, is you don't wait for a threat to compromise one of your system. You really try to detect the initial compromisation without even seeing anything in your logs. And we call this guy SOC number 3 or SOC layer 3. And SOC layer 3 is someone we call it the threat hunting. So all of these guys, all these jobs, only in detection and responding. Why these jobs are emerging right now? Because they said the attacker are very smart. They started to manage to really invade or to really bypass our protective controls. So we need our protective controls, and we need a guy over here called the security engineer. And the security engineer, his main job is basically to protect the information assets according to the asset risk assessment you done earlier. So you implement. Yesterday I was in interview. Someone was asking me, okay, how to really protect against cloud attacks. Okay, so I started to tell him one of the really major attacks in the cloud is denial of service, is distributed denial of service. So many service provider, they're giving you a package that is actually a denial of service package called Shield in AWS, Microsoft Azure. They have different. So basically, I'm telling him the protection that exists in cloud, okay, to really minimize the attacks of denial of service. Sometimes, you know, you can implement something called CDNs, which is you are hosting your website in multiple regions and or multiple service providers. So if one of region is falling, the other region can really. So all of these guys are really protection techniques. But the attacker they come up with new techniques to really attack your system. Okay, so the security engineer here, he will strive, he will do his best to just protect your assets. But again, what happened recently, and I see the market is changing right now. Still, there is a huge demand for a security engineer. There is a huge demand for someone to protect your asset. There is a huge demand for someone to really understand what is GRC is all about. And we talked about this job before. Okay, there is a huge demand. Someone who can really, analyze the risk within your organization and try to make your company comply with regulation and with authorities. So these guys exist here, and these guys still exist. But what I seen here that the company is saying, okay, the attackers are coming with the new techniques every day. So it's try to really evade all your security measurements and tools. So we really need to fortify, or we really need to make this area of detection, responding, recovery is very strong. That's why you find a new terminology started to emerge in the market. If you started to look at the market place and they started to say, to look at the new terminology in specifically in cybersecurity, you'll find a terminology called cybersecurity resilience. And what is the cybersecurity resilience is all about is basically, I cannot say, okay, I already know the risk, I protected against the risk, and I will do my best here in detection and responding. Okay, that's mean, okay, if you try to do, if someone managed to really bypass your protection and he reached to this area and you don't have a proper tools here to detect the attack, it can really cause a lot of damage to your computers. So what the cyber resilience mean that even if you hit by an attack, you will be able to recover and respond in a very proper time, and your company will be able to withstand an attacks. So it's not now the idea if you're gonna be attacked or no. All the companies will be attacked. All the companies, they will have some sort of data breach. Okay, it is now about how to respond to a data to a hack, okay, or to someone is hacking your system, how quickly you're responding, how quickly you recover after an attack. And that is what we call it cyber resilience. And that's why you find now new jobs saying, okay, we need a cyber resilience analyst, or we need a cyber resilience managers. What they wanted really to look for is someone understand about risk, understand about protection techniques, understand about detection, responding, and recovery. So then if you understand about all these topics, now you are a cyber resilience manager or cyber resilience engineer. So you have the whole knowledge. And that's why I would say that NIST publication is specifically the one that we are explaining since we started this program, which is CSF, which is Critical Infrastructure Framework, is very good to really enlighten you about what is a proper process to protect and to respond for an attack. Okay, guys. So far, so good.
So far, so
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is just to put things in perspective and open the door for the discussion about jobs, inshallah, in the future. When we finish the course, we'll talk about jobs more, and we'll talk about different titles inside the organization. But this is just again, here is recovery. We already talked about it 2 days ago. The recovery was a disaster recovery, or maybe BCB, which is business continuity in another hot side, or warm side or cold side. So this is one thing. The other thing here, the response, that what we talked about yesterday, which is basically, I told you guys, you need to prepare before an incident. Okay, if you have a fire and if you're not prepared for a fire, there will be a chaos within your organization, and there will also be a loss of life. Why? Because you never prepared your user, prepared the entire company for this fire. Okay, so if you're trying to really deal with a real fire, it will cause a lot of human loss and a lot of disaster within your company. So you need to be prepared. That's why here in responding, the first early beginning of before any incidents, you need a preparation. A preparation is all about, you need to know what team is going to be responding. What is you need to give them a training. You need to give them a simulation for this training. And some of you guys have asked me yesterday about the table simulation. So, and then in a table simulation is basically, we are simulating there is an attack or an incident happened. Okay, and we need to understand what exactly every one of you guys will do within during an incident. So this is what we mean by table. There is also another simulation, which is a walkthrough simulation, which is mean that we will pretend there's an incident, took one of our server down, and what we're gonna do right now. So we go from identification to containment to eradication, and then recovery, and then finally we are doing post-incident to understand what exactly went wrong, so we can really modify our strategy, or really modify our way to handle things. Okay, why we do responding? Okay, guys, because this is the important thing. We wanted to limit the damage of an incident. Okay, this is the main exact thing here. We wanted to limit the damage, because if we don't really respond in an appropriate time, the attacker will go ahead and do more damage or more compromise for system. And then it will lead to more financial loss or reputation loss. So imagine he compromised your website. The maximum he can do at that time when he compromises your website, maybe he can take it down and your customer is upset. Or maybe he can deface the website and your customer upset and it's bad reputation for you. But if he managed to really get from the website to the database and started to compromise the database, and he started to look into your database and steal credit card numbers, then the damage is much, much higher, and much really has a huge impact on you as a company than just defacing a website or taking a website down. So we need to limit the damage by really responding to attack and detect attack as fast as we can. That's why there is an equation. I wanted to share it with you. The equation is saying that detection time, okay, plus responding time should be really less than the attacker reaching his objective. Okay, so the attacker moving or achieving his objective. If your detection and reaction is very quick, and less the time it requires for the attacker to reach his objective, then your system will be able to be resilient. It means that you will be able to recover to the normal operation without really having a huge impact. But if the detection time and responding time is higher than the attacker time that he will use to reach his objective, then you are in a problem. Why? Because he will be able to reach his objective. They call this sometimes dual time. Okay, and as I show you yesterday, maybe in one of the slides, the detection time in some organization it reach up to 200 days or maybe 150 days, and the responding times also takes weeks. And you imagine if you take 200 or 300 days to respond to an attack, that means that is really bad. And that's why a lot of new technologies right now, like EDR technology or XDR technology, you will hear this word a lot in the market. Is basically it's technology to detect an attack, is all about to try to minimize the timing for detection, the timing for responding. Okay, and SOAR, if you guys also heard about SOAR, I think some of you guys already mentioned SOAR yesterday. So what they're trying to do is to really minimize the time of detection and responding for attacks. So we need to really limit the damage of an attack or an incident. Okay, guys, so far so good. Any questions until now?
Mr. Shadi?
Yes.
Just to be sure, respond is part of responsibility for SOC team, right?
Responding, yes. It's only when we have an incident.
Splunk use it for response?
For detection. Okay, so a very good question, Shaza or Lamia? Is it Lamia?
Abrar.
Abrar is good. Sorry, I'm sorry, Abrar. Okay, because the name of Lamia is in front of me, so I thought like Lamia. Okay, Abrar. Look, Abrar. So we have a timeline. We need to understand the timeline, so I understand what's happening. Okay, so we have an incident here. Okay, an incident here means before the incident, you need really to try to protect your organization as much as you can. Once an incident takes place, whatever the incident is, we give you so many yesterday example for incident, denial of service, someone electricity power shut down, whatever hard drive failure, someone internally was doing deleting files. So this is an incident. Okay, once an incident happened, you need to be able to detect this incident as a team. So you need to detect. Once you be able to detect, okay, you need to respond to this incident. So how to do detections for an incident? Okay, and I give you some tools. I told you detection can be technical, okay, and non-technical. Detection can be technical, that's you are gonna look at the logs that's happening in the systems, okay, looking at the logs that's happening in the network, and looking at the logs that's happening on the machines and end users, looking at logs that happen in the servers, okay, looking at the logs that happen in the bandwidths in your organization, firewall. So looking at these logs can detect something suspicious. In denial of service, just looking at your firewall logs, it can tell you there's something suspicious happening. Okay, so once you detect this, okay, you need to respond very quick. Okay, so detection tools that allow us to really collect these logs in one place and review it all in one place, they called it SIEM solution. And one of the solutions that exists in the market called Splunk. Okay, there is also so many other Elasticsearch. There's also QRadar as a SIEM. So there's so many Alien Vault. So all of them, they will collect all these logs in a centralized location. Why they are collecting this in centralized location? Okay, if I have a technical guy over here, says Abrar. If I have a technical guy here, does it make sense for this technical guy to go through every single log file here in multiple systems to just read the logs files and see what's happening? this is gonna be like daunting jobs and it will never be successful. Why? I have thousands of Windows machines. Okay, I have thousands of servers machines. I have maybe few firewalls. I have thousands maybe of network devices like routers, switches, and all this stuff. Okay, I have multiple network feeds coming from outside. So if I don't really have a centralized location, if I said to someone, go to 1,000 computers every day, try to look for a suspicious activity, would that be possible?
No, but you can use rule in Splunk.
Okay,
Right?
exactly. So what happened is it will say, okay, let me redirect or connect all these logs to a centralized location. And once I have these logs all in centralized location, I can say, now I can create my own cases. They said cases. If I have a user who failed the authentication for so many times, give me a log here. Okay, so if a user tried 3-4 times his login and he couldn't log in, so you're as a Splunk engineer or someone who's monitoring all the stuff, he will be able to say, okay, in this machine was so many failures or so many authentication failed to authenticate to this machine. So now he got alerted that something happened. Once he got alerted, he need to investigate whether it's a real an incident or just false positive. Maybe a user has just forget his password, or maybe someone is trying to do a brute force. So maybe this one or this one. So his job also not only to detect, only also to investigate. Once he finds it's a real case, he will move it to the incident response team, and that's why incident response is here. Okay, and also with incident response, we have digital forensics teams are here as well. So both of them are after the incident takes place and after detections. Okay, so these two teams will be only on the scene after someone already escalate to them an incident. So who is going to escalate to them the incident? The SOC analyst tier 1, he will detect an incident and he will escalate. So this guy are sitting there looking for any incident. When he find one and he verify it a real incident, he's gonna move it to the IR and the digital forensics. Okay, does this make sense? So you think about also the timeline of the attack, and you will find all the detections and responding here does a lot of sense. Okay, guys, so far so good. Okay, let's move on a little bit. So I already explained this, guys. So let me just quickly, before we take a break, we talk about a little bit digital forensics. Just give me 1 second because I need to connect my charger. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So let me go here and explain the incident response process so everyone can understand this is how it works. Okay, guys? So you can see my screen right now?
It's clear.
Okay, clear. So here, guys, if you allow me to show you, this red light over here means we have an incident. We have something that's compromised our confidentiality or our integrity or our availability, and that is what incident. And the same thing, anything that harm your confidentiality, integrity, availability, as we have learned yesterday from the lecture yesterday, it's called incident. So incidents, if it's a real incident, like if it's physical incidents, you will call the police, you will call someone. So if you, God forbid, you have a car accident, this is an incident. So you will call the police. Okay, you find someone steals like a real money from your house, you will start to call the police. Why? Because the police is basically as an incident response. Okay, the traffic guys in the streets is also an incident response. Sometimes they're giving them this name of first responder. First responder means it's the first guy who will come to the scenes when there is an attack or something happened. Or I can call the incident response if it's like I would say if it's like an attack to computer system or an attack to our maybe network or application or whatever. Okay, so this is the incident. So we will call the first responder. This is the IR team. Okay, the IR team. Okay, they are really need to investigate if it's real incident or no. Okay, and we also mentioned that we need also something called digital forensics. So the digital forensics, if this guy said it's an incident, the digital forensics start his work here. He will do something called basics of collecting the data of the crime scene. He will start to listen to people around him, or start to take some logs from the systems. He will start to take the memory that exists in the system right now, because now he wanted to investigate what happened. And his investigation later on will help the company to say what happened exactly in this system. Can we go after the criminal? Okay, how can we eliminate this incident to happen in the future? So his really investigation can help the company really to better fortify their system and make it more resilient. So he will start to look at what copy memory. He take a copy of the memory. He take copy of the processes running on these computers, application running on these computers. He take copy from the files. He take an image from the hard drive if he can, and then we will move to this specific part. Means what? Okay, if it's really a crime scene, guys, and you will really need to go to the basically to the court, you need to take this system out of the communication. You need to take it out, because this one right now, this computer or this server is going to be your evidence. Okay, and once you take it out, why you take it out? It's saying here power down, but it's not really power down. You take it out of the network. Why? Because you don't want the attacker to still have an access to this computer and start to clear his tracks or to start to delete logs. So you wanted, this is becoming an evidence. I need really to take it out of the network. Once he took it out, he will start to make something called copy drive or copy an image. We will see today that we will start to work on copying the image and looking at the memory images and stuff. Why he's copying the image? Because he cannot really do his investigation in the real main evidence. And I'll explain why he cannot do it here. Okay, so he will make an image of this hard drive, and he have an image already for the memory, processes, and files, and he will be able to analyze the copied images in this stage. So he take an image for the hard drive, he take an image for the files, for the registry, for all the stuff that he can really take. Okay, they call it bit-to-bit image. So it's like exactly a typical image for what they have in the hard drive. Okay. Also, he will start to take some photos of the crime scene. This is exactly what happened in reality. So he take a picture of the computer. If there is any suspicious message in the computer itself, like a ransom message or whatever, he take a copy. We take a copy of, for example, the surrounding area of this computers, where it's connected to, and all the stuff. So this is a photographing area. And then lastly, he preserves the original system. What he mean by preserve? This computer that he takes out of the network, okay, you need to preserve it. Why? No one will touch this computer anymore. And we mentioned that the analyzing for the attack is going to be happening in the image itself. Why, guys? Because later on, when I take this evidence, when I take this computer to the court, other investigator can come and do the same exact investigation and come up with the same results. Imagine if he started to work in this real computer or the main computer or original computer, and he messed up the evidence. What happened is, if he take it to a court, and the court start, okay, we will get someone else to analyze the system and see if he can reach to the same results or no, okay, he will not be able to reach the same results. Why? Because the original investigator, he done something wrong and he destroyed the evidence. So as an investigator, all your work is going to be done on the images. All your work is going to be, and the original computer will be seized. Seized means that we will have a control over it, and we will be protecting it and sending it to the court as an evidence. Okay, guys, do you understand now? This is the main area. So first of all, identifying the evidence, and then identifying the evidence means here that I will identify which computer or which laptop, which tablet, which mobile using this attack. So I identify which I can really collect the evidence from. And then preserve evidence mean I will disconnect it from the network, so the attacker will not have an access to it, so he cannot really manipulate the evidence in this computer or delete the tracks. And then once I have the computer disconnected, I will start to do a copy image for whatever exists in this computer. They called it bit-to-bit image. And then I will create 2 copies, and I'll explain why 2 copies. But I will take 2 copies, and then finally the computer itself, now I don't really need it anymore, because I took a copy of the memory, a copy of the hard drive, a copy for all the network connection was in this computer, a copy for the processes and application that was running on this computer, and now I have the full picture. Now at that time, I can switch off this computer, okay, especially if I'm not gonna do incident response. I was gonna switch this computer, you know, switch it down because I didn't read any information anymore, and then I will save it in a plastic bag or maybe a proper bag to preserve the computer from damage or anything, and then I will send it to the court. Okay, and then once I do this, I will start to analyzing the copies of images that I have from the memory, from the hard drive, from network connectivity processes, and take some photos, and finally I will take this to create a presentation, and this presentation later on I can display in the code. Okay, guys, do you understand now this process?
Yes, it's clear now.
Can be manipulated, must be preserved. Yes, I agree with Shaza. This is what Shaza is saying, and I have already explained here, Shaza. Okay, one thing that you need to do to remember what I just explained to you in this diagram, guys, it's called digital forensics methodology. As yesterday we said there is an incident response methodology. Today I'm telling you there is also digital forensic methodology. What we mean by methodology, a steps or a very systematic way to really gather, collect this information, analyze this information, represent this information. You as an investigator or as examiner for digital forensics, you need to follow this methodology. If you didn't follow this methodology, then the court later on, they said, okay, you know what? You didn't follow a proper methodology to gather this information, to really take the care of or preserve the evidence. We cannot admit or we cannot really recognize your way. So we need to really follow these steps. And the steps, as I mentioned, identification of evidence, okay? This is related to really to understand which hardware was involved, which computer was involved, which network application was involved in this attack or in this computer crime. And we explain what is computer crime in a bit, but what was involved, okay? And they started to really say, this is where I can find the evidence, so you identify. So if you have someone who's selling drugs and he's doing all his deals in his mobile, so you can say, okay, in his mobile, okay, this is the main evidence. Okay, there is an application like a WhatsApp. They use it for really encrypted, communication. I will not tell you the name of this application, but you can search it online. It's even more secure than WhatsApp. So they use it. So I understand there's an application here that it also have all the message that he exchanged with his client. I also know that his contact numbers, his last calls is an important evidence because they are also was included. So I identified another thing, who's the 10 calls that he already made. So this application, the mobile, the call he made, it can really give me the evidence that this person was a drug dealer. Okay, so this is identification of evidence. Collection of the evidence means I will have tools to collect the data from the original device. Okay, I will not use the original device in my analysis. I will not use any original data to really. So I need to really take a copy. So there's so many applications over there to really collect and really to gather information from devices and it will be something, I will explain it later on. It's called write protected. Write protected, it can really means you are copying the data without writing anything to the hard drive. So normal copying, okay, is not allowed. You do something called copy protected. So you gather this data, collect this data from devices in appropriate way. Okay, so when you are copying, you are not changing anything in the original hard drive. Okay, and then you start to do your analysis. Okay, and analysis means this guy's at maybe 10 o'clock, he exchanged a data with someone, okay, and then later on he called him, and then the police catched this guy in this area with the drugs. That means that he was really going to sell drugs to this person or to our FBI agent. So now you have all the framework, you have all what I mean, the analysis, you have the message exchange, you have the phone calls, you have him in the meeting point trying to sell the drugs. With this all evidence, if it goes to the court, he cannot really deny any of his actions. Okay, guys? And then finally, documentation and presentation means you really need to document your finding, okay, and present it in a way that's in a nice report. I will show you how this report will looks like, okay, and give it back in the court or represent it back in the court, saying I'm a digital forensics analyst, and from my analysis that I did in this so-and-so phone or so-and-so hard drive, I can tell you this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. Okay, guys? So far, so good?
Yes, so far.
Yes.
Okay, so again, there is so many methodology and so many books talks about methodology and how the methodology looks like. Okay, but eventually all the methodologies are the same. You need by identification, and then acquisitions and preservation means you now acquisition here, gathering or collecting data, and preservation means you really preserve the original equipment or original evidence, because original evidence is important, so it's important to preserve it. And that's why in movies, guys, when we see maybe someone killed someone in a movie, and you know they brought this investigators to investigate, so anything that they found in the crime scene, they take like a plastic bag and they put this in the plastic bag, and they add the date and the time and what they found exactly. So we found this specific cigarette, we found also a glass of what, we found also in the glass some, you know, specific fingerprints. So they take this all in a very specific bags and they give it a label. This is what we call preservation for evidence. So later on, you cannot deny saying, okay, I never, you know, use this, you know, weapon. So I never use this knife. No, we find this knife in the crime scene. We find your fingerprints in this crime scene. So this is like, you know, game over for you. So again, the analysis, this is where it takes time. I will take the evidence back to the lab or back to my computer station where I'm using all my tools to start to look at the evidence. So if I give you an example, if you are, if someone killed someone, okay, and they wanted to really understand how he killed him, so they will go to his computer search history. Exactly, Shaza, tool like FTK. But FTK specifically is to take the image for the hard drive itself. Okay, so I'm taking image. Okay, you need to do analysis. You need to think about, okay, now I have the data for using an FTK. You need to do now an analysis saying, okay, where should look for, maybe he browsed the internet to buy an online weapon or something. So I will go check in his online history, on his web browser history, to see which site he visited, which site he used, you know, a credit card on to buy something. So this is kind of thing that it really needs like a criminal mindset to analyze a crime. That's why you see this all, you know, CSI series and all this stuff that these guys are like really thinking about, okay, what is a normal normal thing that's it will require, it will help us to catch the perpetrator or the criminal. Okay, and finally, you need a presentation and post-process, guys. The post-process again is to reflect back on whole process and see if we've done something wrong or not. Okay, So investigating a computer crime, and what is computer crime? Basically here, I will explain it later on, but computer crime is any crime that is done by computer or by help of a computer or was a computer involved. So this is a computer crime. So if you used your computer to hack someone, okay, so this is computer was really the main tools that you are used for a crime, or maybe you hacked someone, so his computer now including evidence, or used as a tool for committing a crime. This is the example that I gave you guys for someone are selling drugs and using his phone to sell to send message and receive messages. So this is one of the what is a computer crime is all about. Okay, so how to investigate a computer crime? Okay, the first thing is you need to determine if an incident has taken place or no. And this is, if you guys remember, this is the same exactly step we do in incident response. So in incident response, the first step is to determine if we have an incident or no. So this is the most important thing, okay? Because if we verified it's not an incident, we don't have to activate the rest of the steps here. Again, also in incident response, if we determine it's a false positive, it's not an incident, we don't need to go for continuations or containment and eradication and all the stuff. Determine if an incident has occurred, find and interpret the clues left behind. So any evidence that has been left behind, you need to find it. You need to look at the systems, and you need to find any clues. Any clues mean any they called it artifacts or evidence that's left on the systems. Conduct a preliminary assessment to search for the evidence. This is basically a very initial or basics assessment. So you will look at the date and time that the attacks happened, or the incident happened. You look at who was inside, who was using the system at that time. Okay, if you can able to take a picture for these computers. So this is like really basic assessment. It does not really require you to analyze anything, but I wanted really to see who was using the system, what time the attacks or the incident happened. So I'm collecting initial basic data about the incident. Okay, search and seize the computer equipment. And this is really a tricky part, because you cannot really search or seize the computer equipment without your company approval or the law enforcement approval. So if we are talking about an incident that happens within your organization, so you need to take a permission from the management. So let's say that's one of your employees or someone within your organization are really accessing an appropriate website. Okay, so this is an incident because this is violation for the policy of your company. Okay, so you cannot say that I'm the IT guys. I have found out about he's doing this maybe by web filtering logs or something, in your system. So now I'm gonna go and really search his computer for what this malicious guys were doing, and I will really seize his computer, like take his computer to my room. You cannot do this without search warrant or even a permission from the company. So this is important. You will need to seize it. You will need to search into the equipment, but this is only after you taking a proper permission. And then once you have seized the equipment, once you start to search, you start to collect evidence. As I mentioned, evidence can be existed in a memory, can be exist in a network communication, can be exist in the system logs file, can be exist in the application log files. So you need to collect all this evidence that can be presented in court of law or at the corporate inquiries. Mean that once you collected this evidence, once you analyze it, now later on, it will be they will ask you either to really show it in the court or show it at the corporate level. So sometimes we had a guy who was accessing inappropriate websites during the working hours. So what we did is, okay, we said, okay, the HR we informed the HR about this guy, and then after informing him, they talked to his manager. His manager said, okay, we need really proof that he was really searching this website. So we went, took his computers, looked at the application he was using to evade proxies and all the stuff. And we showed the proxy and the communication and all the stuff to his manager. So who initiated this request is the corporate environment, the HR and his manager. Okay, so don't do this by yourself. Wait for a proper permission. Okay, guys. So far, so good.
Yes.
Yes, it's
Okay.
clear.
Okay, so we just to back to the first point, which is determine if an incident has occurred or no. So really, you need to understand, did a crime occur or no? Okay, so do we have a violation for our confidentiality, integrity, availability, or our security policy or no? So this is the first question. If it's yes, okay, then you started to ask the second question, which is really what happened, okay? Did these guys search an appropriate website? Did these guys really try to buy an online weapon online? Did he try to buy drugs online? So this is also, you need to determine in this, okay? And then you collect the evidence, okay? And let's say that this was really an offense that's by law, it's gonna put him, because you know, as a company now, if you find this guy's is doing something really illegal, you need to really inform the authority about him. So if he is doing, you know, child pornography or child abuse online or child trafficking or buying weapons, or he's checking terrorist websites, now as a company you are obligated to go and tell the authority about him, okay? And that's why there is a lot of companies now, before they hire someone, they wanted to check his criminal record. Basically, if he was involved in one of these things, they will not be able to hire him. Okay, so now if we take this evidence, okay, to the court, okay, means that we are gonna take it to the court and the court will look at the evidence. The evidence that we collect from computers should has two specific conditions to be admissible in court or to be acceptable for the court. Okay, so one of them is authenticity, okay, and one is continuity. So what is authenticity means is truly the evidence not modified or unmodified. We have the original evidence. That's why I told you, when we got a laptop or we got a mobile, we are 100% sure that it's committed a crime. What we do, we don't do our analysis or our work in this computer, because every time you work in a computer, you open this computer to collect even logs, what happens is the registry of this computer and the logs in this computer is changing. So I wanted really original evidence without any modification. So the original computer, you take a copy from everything, and then you keep this computer saved unmodified, because this is going to be the real evidence that you're going to send it in a court. And this evidence should be already has some authenticity, so it's not unmodified. Why? Because the court, or maybe the guy who is being charged as a guilty, you can say, you know what, I don't believe what you have done. Let us use a third party or another. Okay, yes, you need to take an image from the evidence. Shaza is saying, such what can I do? Is they call it bit by bit image, means you are taking a copy for everything that exists in this computer, whether a memory, like a RAM, whether it is especially RAM, because you know the hard drive, there is no much changes in the hard drive. Even if you shut it down, the hard drive state, it will be the same, because the hard drive is permanent data. Okay, the most important tricky part is the memory, is the RAM, because our RAM is volatile. Okay, once it loses the electricity, it will lose all the data in memory. So you cannot say what, okay, let me disconnect this computer from the network and let me make a copy of the hard drive and shut it down. If you make a copy from the hard drive and you shut it down, you lost all the data and the memory and the processes. The most appropriate way they do it in digital forensics, the first thing, let me take a copy of the memory. So even if this computer restarted later, whether by the attacker or whether by the users himself, or whether by someone else, you will be able to see what's happening. Yes, so you have 2 copies. You will make 2 copies of everything you have. Okay, so you make 2 copies. I will explain why we need two copies, but when it comes to the evidence. But right now, we made our copy, but we will have the original, and we have to prove to the court that it's truly unmodified, original from the crime scene. So this is one thing. So if you went to someone who's using his mobile to sell drugs, the first thing that the officer they will do, they will take his mobile, they will make sure that he will not format his mobile or anything, and they put it in one of these plastic bag, and I was telling you about, because this is an evidence what he was doing in his mobile. Okay, guys. Also, in continuity mean something called chain of custody. I explained yesterday chain of custody in a very quick way, but today is really the day that we look at chain of custody in a very deep detail. So what is a chain of custody? If you guys allow me to show you the chain of custody, this is 2 important also diagrams. I will go back to them later on, but here, the chain of custody here is basically, since you start investigation, every single thing you do with the evidence, it need to be dated, okay? It need to be exactly explicitly saying what you have done, okay? And who did it, and explain and giving a date and time. So when the data reaches the court will see, okay, at that time happened this time, this is preserving the chain of custody. If you lose the chain of custody, the court cannot cannot accept your evidence. So it's very important. First of all, the original evidence are not modified. Okay, you don't. For example, they do this in Egypt a lot. Okay, so they say, okay, we find a criminal with drugs. Okay, so they find that the criminal with drugs. Okay, and they said, okay, we seize the drugs. Okay, they seized the drugs from the criminal, so they took it from him. So this is an evidence that this guy was selling drugs, buying drugs, wherever, right? So what happened is later on, they tried to send these drugs to the main room where they keep all the evidence. Okay, if this evidence reached to the main preservation room, this is the game over, because the court will call the preservation room and find out the evidence they found this guy. But what they do is bribing the guy in between to change the date or the time here. So the first guy who sees the evidence was saying that it's 15th of May. Okay, 15th of May, we find Fulani, this guy, has this drugs. Okay, now and this time, the guy in between who is carrying this to the preservation room, what he will do is he will just say, instead of 15, 16. Same name, same ID, same everything. Okay, now it's in the room saying it what is 16th of May. Now the court will say, okay, let me see when the original guy find the drugs 15. Okay, when it's really written in the package 16. Oh, now we cannot really admit this evidence anymore, because someone in between manipulated the chain of custody. Do you understand what they do? It's like really a small thing, but for the court, it means a lot. That's you as an officer saying that you seize it in 15, but it is really written 16. So now there is a conflict of the chain of custody, the date of time. Okay, that's mean I cannot admit this, and that's mean these guys will not be guilty anymore, and he can get out. So this is how corrupt the system is. Okay, guys, do you understand what is the record of sequence? Exactly, Anand. Okay, so the record of sequence. So here, the guys, he's saying that, for example, 11:04, incident team arrived. So incident response team arrived. Okay, even before 11:05, there is 10:53. There's an attack observed. Okay, this is observed by maybe a normal mean, like for example, detection on one of the logs, or maybe by non-technical team, that's the person who is sitting in his computer or the person around him, they said something is weird about your computer. So this is the first time we seen the attack. Again here, 11:05, the first responder or the team came, and then 11:05, system copied. System copied means that we started to copy before we do anything. We copy the memory, we copy the connections that happen in the computer. If we can take also an image from the computer, if they allow us. If it's not allowed, or gonna takes a lot of time, then at least the important processes, connection and memory copied. 11:05, 11:15. Now I'm gonna take it offline. Offline mean I'm gonna not shut down the system, but I'm gonna take it outside the network, because I mentioned if we leave the system inside the network or connected, there is two things. First, the attack itself can really propagate and infect more computers within your network, especially if it's a malware attacks or whatever. Okay, and the second thing, that the attacker maybe feels there's someone started to really copying images and do all the stuff, so he started to destroy and delete logs from the system. So you need really to take the system outside, and this is another common thing between you and the IR. So the IR team, first of all, they will need to identify we have an incident. They need to containment the evidence or do limit of the damage, and this is what we do in this stage. So the digital forensics and IR is very close. Okay. Here also 11:45 first. Okay, system power down. That means that we already copied everything, or even we start this copy here. Exactly. So every single thing. No, the most important thing. Look at this. This is exactly timing. When you start this operation, when you finish, what you have done exactly. Okay, and then finally, here the preservation part. The preservation part is saying that system is logged in a static free bags, and I will tell you why static free bags in 1 second. Static free bags because our computer system is very susceptible for static charges. So basically, if you have electricity charges in one of these systems, it can destroy your motherboard. It can destroy your hard drive. It can destroy the memory, and then your computer is now not preserved anymore. So you need to make sure it's static free bag, okay, specific type of bags that it's really can stop the electrical discharge and all the stuff, and you put it in a storage room. So this is a step by step and within the timeline. So if one of these steps are not really mentioned, the court cannot really cannot admit your data, and this will cause manipulation in the chain of custody, and then they will not admit this evidence, so it's really useless. So you have I wish I have already copied this document. It looks like this. Okay, so in the chain of custody you will have a document. Okay, it's just a document, by the way. End of the day, it's a document, and this document is updated every single step you do anything. So first of all, it's saying that's the case number, what we are dealing with, which case number or which incident number. Okay, device model and serial number. Okay, what is the device model that we are investigating, and what is the serial number? Okay, when and where the evidence hold or stored. Okay, so this is talking about the timing. Okay, and where you have saved the evidence, or which storeroom. Okay, for each person who held or had access to the evidence at every time. So if you have multiple incident respondable teams, you need to mention the name and what he did exactly to the evidence. Okay, name, title, contact information, and signature. Why they had an access. Okay, to explain in the end why these guys was allowed to really reach the evidence. Okay, if one of these documents really does not really clarify how we handle the incident, it will not be admissible in the court. Okay, guys, so far so good. Okay, just before we move here, I wanted to show you something. Here, this is cyber attack and cyber crimes. Okay, and before the cyber attacks, we tried to our best to really implement controls, and these controls will achieve confidentiality, integrity, availability, accountability, and non-repudiation and authenticity. Okay, so this is our what we call cyber security realm, or cyber security is basically to protect information assets from attacks, from cyber security attacks. This is by implementing cyber security controls. But once an attack happens, okay, you will have to go for the digital forensics process, which is a digital forensics process, as we mentioned a few minutes ago. It's a methodology. You need to identify, extract, examine, or analysis, documentation, and preserve, and reporting the evidence. So these are related, but the only difference is if you wanted to allow me to draw something over here, is a timeline. Okay, the time. Okay, the timeline here, this is before the attack. Okay, and this is when an event happened or an incident happened, and this is what you do after the attack. Okay, also you need to understand that not all the system will be going to the court. So sometimes they said this is a manual incident. We need to just activate the IR, the IOR, which is incident response. Okay, guys. So far, so good.
Yes, so far so good.
Okay, I think this is a good time to take a break now. It's almost 9:15. Okay, this is also sorry. Before we take the break, we'll look at this. Okay, so this is the last thing that I want. With the frequently and how advanced of today's cyber attack, computer forensics has become an integral aspect of information security incident response plans. So now if you implementing your incident response plan, now your computer forensics become a part of it. And that's why I'm telling you, there is a new emerging job called digital forensics and incident response, because both of them are integral, means both of them are completing each other. So if you're not gonna do digital forensics, at least you're gonna do incident response. If you do an incident response, sometimes you also require to do digital forensics. So they are completely related to each other, and we as you guys seen from here, that's also some of the steps we do with incident response, we also do in digital forensics. And again, both of them are falling into the category of responding, which is incident response. Not everything in this responding, because responding is divided by disaster recovery, business continuity, and incident response. The incident response, we have a small part of it. We really need to initiate, in some cases, digital forensics. And I will explain when and why sometimes it requires a digital forensics, especially if you are violating the laws or violating the criminal laws inside your country. So if you find one of your employees are like really doing something really bad, if you knows about it and you didn't really tell the authorities, then you are really part of this crime. So this is responding to an attacks, and this is will take us here. This is the chain of custody. We'll come back and look at the forensics investigation methodology, and we really need to look at everything here. So this is will require some time. So I would say that we go for a lunch break. Quick break. It's too early to have a lunch. Okay. So can we go? It's now 10:20. We come 10:35. This is okay, guys?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Okay.
okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
See you guys. See you guys in a bit. Okay. Bye. Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. How are you doing so far? Enjoyed the break?
Walaikum salam. Yes.
Okay, sorry guys, I have I don't know what happened, but seems like my my Zoom is not really working appropriately. So can you guys hear me now? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's go quickly here, guys, because I know today also I forget that we have also some sort of meeting with SDA. So I'll try to also to quickly wrap this up a little bit. Okay, so here is the computer forensics investigation, okay, methodology. So in the first early beginning, it's saying, okay, if you're gonna investigate a case, okay, if you're gonna start to look for evidence in a computer, don't do this without obtaining a search. Okay, perfect. So okay, perfect. So today, guys, again, we'll go for the first step over here. The first step over here is basically to obtain a search warrant, and that means that you cannot go and seize someone's computer and work and searching for an evidence in one of the computer without obtaining a search warrant, especially if you're doing this for a court. Okay, like I give you an example, which is very common example, which is when you guys are watching a movie and you find someone in the movie as a police officer going to a house and he's asking the owner of the house to allow him to search his house, he will not allow him to search his house, and he will ask him to give him the search warrant. He will ask him for where is the search warrant that come from the court that allow you as a police officer to come to my house and search my house. The same thing and the same thing here, when we are searching a computer, when we're searching for an evidence, we cannot really go and seize and take this computer to our IT room and start to search it without the authority from the company or without the law or the court authority. So the first thing here is search warrant. Again, once we have the search warrant, we start to look at evaluate, and secure the scene. The scene is the crime scene. Basically, if you are if you have guys seen a movie before and you see someone maybe commit a crime, you will find them, they have this red tape or maybe yellow tape that will surround the whole crime scene with it. So this crime scene now is going to be secured. No one can enter the area here, because anyone can enter the area. He can manipulate, or he can change, or he can by mistake even tamper with the evidence. So this red tape that they put around, or yellow tape that you put around the crime scene, is basically to secure the scene. The same thing, if you have a computer and it's really part of a crime, you need also to secure the scene around the computer. You need to make sure there is no cups full of water around this computer. You need to make sure that no one will reach this computer. You need to make sure that the electricity connectivity is going to be connected until you finish all your work on this computer and extract evidence. So it's your job to really evaluate and secure the scene the way it is. Like maybe you say, you know what, I don't want anyone in this room. The room that is in the data center, for example, where they are committing, where it's an attack committed and the database has been breached. I don't want anyone to get inside the data center room without a proper permission from me. So this is how to secure the scene. Once you secure the scenes and no one can enter or no one can manipulate the data except you, then we go for collecting the evidence. Collecting the evidence means, guys, okay, I told you there is so many evidence in our computers. Okay, there is network connectivities. Okay, this is all the connectivity that's connected you to the internet. So this is very important to really have a peek on top of it. Okay, there's also the processes, the application running in your computer. There's also the memory in your computer, which is RAM. Okay, and there is also the hard drive, which is also contain all the files. Sometimes, guys, the attacker already will convince you to download the malware. So the malware will be part of your hard drive, and you will execute the malware, and the malware, when it's executed, it will create a new process. It will stay in the memory, and it will be remaining artifact in the hard drive. So if you are investigating a malware infection, you really need to get all these puzzles, and this malware will be creating a connection outside to the attacker. So you really need to get all this evidence. So later on you can say, based on the internet traffic, based on this evidence that I found in hard drive, based on this processes, based on the memory analyzing for the memory, I can tell you this was a malware infection, and this is the person who have done this malware infection. Okay, guys? So this is collecting the evidence. Once you collect the evidence, you secure the evidence. Secure evidence means that the original hard drive, the original computer that was part of this attack, you need really to secure it. Means you need to really preserve the evidence here. So if this hard drive is very important, or this is maybe the laptop is part of this crime, you needed to put it in an anesthetic bags and keep it in a secure location. And secure location is important. So you don't put it in the secure bag and put it in the room. So maybe someone walk in and steal this. So the most important thing is really put it in the bag. And if you're going to send it to the court, then look for a secure delivery, okay, service to move it to the court. If you're gonna keep it in your organization for further investigation, you can do what? You can keep it in a safe or a cabinet with a keys, so no one can. Because maybe the user later on will come, find his laptop, and he opens the laptop and he deleted the stuff that he thought it's violating the policy. So we need to secure the evidence. Okay. The acquiring the data, as I mentioned before, acquiring the data is to be basically. Okay, let's just Sahar is sending an important message, guys, for today. So. Okay, so this week only that we're not gonna have the weekly schedule with SDA, but inshallah next week you guys will have the weekly schedule as the way it is. So this is specific.
Yeah. So it's like just for this week, but like next week, inshallah, we will have our weekly meeting. So you can proceed with your lecture as it is until until 12. Until the break. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. No worries.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Have a
that.
great day.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so guys, we have, alhamdulillah, plenty of time today to cover the lecture, so this is good. So right now, guys, I mentioned that you need to have acquire the data. Acquire the data. This is specifically when it comes to a bit image of the hard drive, and then analyze the data. You start to analyze the data means you start to analyze the data and evidence from the image that you have taken. You don't touch the original evidence at all, okay? And assess evidence and case, and then prepare for the final report. So you need to write a report saying, okay, according to the evidence I found, according to analyze my analytic and analyzation for the evidence, I came up with this executive summary, and the executive summary is saying so and so and so, and I found this person is guilty because he was browsing this website, and you send this to the court. Right now, or you send this to the management. Once you send this to the management, one of the two things, they can ask you to come later on to do the testify as an expert witness. That means you are the one who is now becoming a witness in the court. So you're saying, okay, based on my analytic and analyzation for the hard drive and the evidence, I can tell you guys this is what happened. So now you are gonna give testimony to the court about what happened, as you are an expert witness. Okay, guys. So far, so good. This is the investigation methodology.
Okay.
Okay.
It's clear.
Okay. So
yeah,
why?
I have a question. Obtaining the search warrant, do I have to show it to someone, or just having it is enough? Like
Yes,
in
you
the
have to
data
show
center.
it. If you allow me, I know that it will be a question. So at the end of the lecture, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had one exactly one specific. Yes, this is how the search warrant looks like. Okay.
Okay.
This is the search warrant coming from basically from the government, and that's why you find the police officer when they go and try to search someone off a home, they will tell him what is the search warrant. So he will show him a piece of a document. It's basically the court is authorizing you as an investigator or the police officer to enter this house and search it. So this is how it looks like.
Yeah. What I mean, if I'm working for the company and I have it, they give it to me like at the company.
Okay. If
yeah.
it's within the company, that's fine. Also, yes.
Yeah, what I mean, do I have, if I go to, like a computer and there is, like an employee working that computer, do I have to show it to him before I search that computer, or I can just?
Yeah, exactly. And HR will inform him. HR, they will come with you and inform him. Okay, we are really investigating a case now that happened in your computer, and so and so and so is gonna carry on the search. And here is the permission from the management to search your computer. So
Okay,
the HR will be included.
Yeah, not me. And I have another question. Who is gonna make sure the sequence of time is right? Like if I'm the investigator and I'm writing down the time, maybe I can change it, but do someone will be with me to make sure? Is someone with the law enforcement gonna be with me in the same time to make sure? For example, if I did it 1 p.m. and I write 2 p.m., who's gonna know,
Yeah, exactly. So this is why they are sometimes they require a third-party investigator to do this. So not someone inside the company, not someone related to the persons. Yani, what's happened is, especially for timing and the chain of custody, use the one that you wanted to escalate this to the court, right? So you need really to type every time you do anything to the evidence, right? Once you,
yeah.
But if you manipulated this timing, okay, it will not be admissible for the court. So for the sake of investigation, if you really wanted to do your job, you need to do it in a proper way. And that's why
I mean, who's gonna know if I'm doing it by myself, if I change it? Nobody,
No. If you the only one investigator in one case, no one will know. Only one investigator.
Do usually they put like 2 or 3 people together to
Sometimes,
make sure nobody?
If it's a big crime, they will put 2. And 2, it means, if we remember, there is one aspect of security called segregation of duties. So segregation of duty, you will be trying to copy the image from the hard drive or copy the memory, and someone is really writing down and taking photographs for what you're doing. So now he will be saying, okay, you know, at what time we take this photograph, we take the copy image, and he write. And segregation of duties means it will be hard for you to fraud the entire operation, because you have a photographer or you have your colleagues, they are with you, so it's not easily to manipulate the evidence time and the chain of custody.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's go back to our. I just wanted to show you the search. Okay, the search warrants, and we go back to this methodology. Sorry, there's some stuff here that's important to cover. Okay. So what is the definition of forensics? Because until now we just said that, okay, what is the specific investigation procedures? Okay, and then when we need these guys of digital forensic and computer forensics, so this is important also. Again, if a breach of a contract occurs, okay, if a copyright and intellectual property theft misuse happens, so then you need someone to really understand who stole this intellectual property or who is stealing the copyright. And that's why always, you know, China and the US right now, they are, you know, accusing each other for stealing the intellectual property and copyrights. Employees disputes means that, let's say that you have two employees, one sent an email, an appropriate email to his colleagues. Okay, now you need a digital forensics guy to come and investigate this. And I will tell you, this has happened with me personally. So we had an IT guy, the head of IT, and then he received an email from someone inside the company, right? You know, but he sent it from outside, like he has his personal email outside, and then he wanted to really curse these guys or saying bad words to him. So he sent an email from outside, but he knows in this email, he wrote a lot of stuff that happens inside the company. So we know that he's internal guy, like he's someone definitely from inside the company, and we done an investigation, okay, until we find out the person who sent this email. So within the dispute between the both of them, you really needed someone to investigate and really connect the dots and really calculate. I remember at that time, we checked the sender IP address, okay, and the sender IP address is part of the header of this email. And then we went to the authority. The authority, like the police enforcement, they give us a letter to the service provider, and the service provider told us who was using this IP address at this certain time. So from this, we understand who sent this email from inside the company. So he was not careful enough to send it from like an internet cafe or something. He sent it from his home using his personal email, so thinking that no one will know his this personal email and no one knows his IP address, but just following the evidence, we checked the internet connections, we checked the sender's IP address, we went back to the police station, we showed them the email and everything. So they give us a letter to the service provider, and we did the whole thing, and we found finally this person. And I think this person at that time, this is incident like 10 years ago or something, this person was like really dismissed from the company. They got rid of him. So digital forensics can really be beneficial when you're having a dispute within a company. Okay, damage to resources mean you have a very important database that someone like really took it down, or maybe one of the important servers you have, someone really took it down. So you really need to investigate when and why, and computer forensics will be able to help you, not only to help you, but as you can see from the other side of the page, if you guys look at here, it will help you also in supporting and prosecuting of perpetrator of an incident. So this is basically taking this person, okay, who was done something wrong to the criminal law or to the court, and then give him the proper justification for his action. So for example, if someone is really using his phone and computers to deal with drugs, using all this digital forensics tools, we can extract what he did exactly, and then we can put this in front of the court, and then they will give him the proper sentence for his action. So really, computer forensics can really help us in prosecutions, okay? Also to minimize the tangible and intangible losses to the organization. So basically, if you understand, okay, what attacks took place and how it happened, okay, and who was doing this, and how he actually commit his crime, this will definitely help the company to really protect the organization from similar incidents in the future. And if we are protected from a similar incident in the future, means that we're gonna protect our tangible and intangible losses, because you are protecting your organization. Understanding how the attackers took place or took over your network or took over a system, okay, giving you the step-by-step how they do it, you will never fall for the same mistakes again, hopefully. So it's giving you the lessons, and it will help you to really build your security in a much better ways in the future, so similar attacks will not happen. Okay, guys? So far, so good? Okay, let's move on in this one. Okay, so let's understand what is forensics in the early beginning. What do we mean by forensics here? Okay, because forensics is really, before we say computer forensics, we say forensics. This is really the godfather of computer forensics, okay? So forensics means, if you guys allow me to read here the definition, and I'll give you a very nice example for it, because I've been also thinking about this example for a long time. So here is application of physical science to law. So basically, we understand our physical environment, our physical laws, okay, like for example, physical law like gravity, okay, this is a physical law. Like there is also a physical law about how when you shooting a bullet, how this bullet will react according to the physical law and the physical environment. So this is all part of the physical science to law. In the search for truth in a civil or criminal or social behavior matters, to the end that injustice shall not be done to any member of the society. Okay, so this is what forensics means. Forensics in Arabic, or in Arabic, they called it al-bahs al-jinai. Okay, so al-bahs al-jinai means that you are doing, you're using the physical science to understand what happened around you, okay, specifically for a center case, and then that will lead you that you will not commit injustice, meaning انك انت will be fair, okay, and no one will be prosecuted or taken to a jail without a proper evidence. So, for example, you find a bullet in, for example, you find a bullet in a crime scene. You know that every single machine gun or a gun, it will have a specific fingerprint when you are shooting this bullet, okay? So with the bullets or the بيسموها الفوارغ من الbullets, okay, you can tell which gun used in this specific crime scene, and you can track the perpetrator or the person who did this by this only small part of the bullet, okay? And there's so many cases for this, and I think this science, to be honest, forensics is written in Quran maybe 1400 years ago, and specifically in the story of Sayyidina Yusuf with Imrat al-Aziz, when they are raised to the door, وبعد كده she pull his shirt from the back, and then يعني الآية بتقول وقدت قميصه من دبر والفاء سيدها لدى الباب قالت من أراد ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. فسيدنا يوسف قال هي راودتني عن نفسي وشاهد شاهدا من أهلها إن كان قميصه قد قد من قبل قد من دبر فصدق وهي من الكاذبين وإن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين. But this is like a really good example for forensics, because the guy who brought him is a wisdom guy. He look at the evidence. What is the evidence here, guys? The evidence, we have a broken shirt, but the broken shirt is from the back. So one of the stories of these two people are true and one is false. She is saying he did this, and he is saying she did this. Okay, so let's look at the evidence, and the evidence only can tell us who is right and who's wrong. So they look at the evidence, they say that his shirt was pulled from the back, and this guy at that time he said, okay, فلما رأى قميصه قد قد من دبر قال هذا من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. For him, as someone who is investigated the case, okay, it was obvious for him who was lying and who was telling the truth. So this was the forensics. This is 14 years ago, 1400 years ago. So this is it always fascinates me when I read the Quran. I find this small thing is there, and I find, okay, you know what? This is what forensics is all about, right? I don't know if you guys get the story or no, but you can read Surah Yusuf. It's in Surah Yusuf. It will give you the initial beginning of forensics investigation. Okay, so this is what's forensics. Okay, but what is computer forensics, guys? I have 3 definitions here, and like from 3 different books and different sources. But the one that I found very appealing and easy to remember, forensics computer is a science. Again, it's science, because we really need to understand, in order to do a forensics investigation, we need to understand how our file system are saving files, how our memory are dealing with data, how our connection to the internet and TCP connections and UDP and all this stuff is working. So it's a science. And we need by applying the science to capture processes and investigate data from computer using methodology. The methodology we have already explained, whereby any evidence discovered is acceptable in a court of law. So we will apply the science, okay, of capturing. We capture evidence, we're processing, we analyze this data, and then we can be able, by following a certain methodology, to conclude and come up with a report saying what happened exactly, who we think that who done this, and what kind of damage happened to us as the company when we were under this attacks or under incident. And we need to collect this in a sound manner, or we need to collect this in a proper manner that's gonna be acceptable in the court. And again, acceptable in the court, I have added the 2 conditions that is gonna allow us to be acceptable in the court. Again, I'm repeating them again. The evidence are not modified, so the original evidence you still preserve it in a way that someone else can do the same investigation you done and can reach to the same results. So this is like to bringing someone from outside to judge between you and between the criminal. And also the chain of custody is preserved or there. So every single thing you did since you reach the crime scene until the data reach to the secure site where the court is, this is all have already documented, and exactly who accessed the data, when and why. And then that's exactly, I told you, in a chain of custody in here in specifically in Egypt, they do some they play with they tamper the chain of custody, and you know it's not really good thing. Okay, guys, to understand this. Also, another definition is saying the preservation, identification, extraction, interpretations, and documentation of computer evidence to include the rules of evidence, legal processes, integrity of evidence, factual reporting of the information found, and proving to by an expert what happened exactly in the crime scene. So this is all definition, and all of them are the same. You are using the computer